So I'm sitting there thinking, I've got an 8-month-old baby next to me. I'm 33 years old. 50% odds is not what I'm here for. I'm not in the market for 50% odds. I need healed. I need cellular healing. And so if the standard medical procedures of chemo, radiation, and surgery produce those types of results, I needed enough time to explore alternatives.
Welcome to the How I Healed It podcast. Here at How I Healed It, we get to hear stories from those who have healed their bodies from the unhealable through alternative methods and the experts who are passionate about whole body health and healing. As I have been on my own healing journey, I have found that the number one thing that has kept me going is learning from others who have gone before me. I believe we can gain nuggets of wisdom from each healing story that we hear. Thanks in advance for subscribing to our podcast so we can continue to bring these amazing stories. I'm your host, Plantfully Megan. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Megan and welcome to the How I Healed It podcast. And today we have an amazing healing story. I get the honor of chatting with Carly Brown, who healed through integrative methods to heal her thyroid cancer. She is a mama of two and the founder of Alchemy Juice. She's a wealth of knowledge on natural health and just a beautiful, joy-filled soul. And I'm so excited to get to chat with you and hear a little bit more about your story today, Carly.
Amazing. Thanks, Megan. I'm excited to share more.
Absolutely. So can you just dive right into your story? I'm so curious how it all began, how you started on this journey, how you found out you had cancer, and then what it looked like from there.
Sure. So we need to back up a little bit because my husband and I are world travelers. We love to travel. We got married at a courthouse and then spent the next 14 months traveling the world together. And so we were on our way to move to South Korea and found out that we were having a baby. And so plans changed a little bit. And we'd actually, at the time we were in Austin, but we had already sold our car. We had packed up all the stuff at our apartment. We were a week away from leaving when we found out. And so we're like, okay, well, my husband's from Montana and we'd always wanted to spend time living in Montana. So we're like, let's go to Montana. We'll have the baby. I had to contact Airbnb saying, hi, would you mind if I had a home birth in your Airbnb? So
that's awesome.
I did have one woman who was like, oh yeah, bless the space, go for it. So we ended up getting an Airbnb for 6 months in Livingston, Montana, which is a town of 700 people outside of Bozeman in the mountains. And my son was born in a beautiful home birth in one of the worst snowstorms that they had seen in years. I'm 8 centimeters dilated, baby's coming, and Ross needs to go outside to push the midwife out of a snowbank that she was stuck in.
That is awesome.
So we have our baby boy cruise, and when he's 3 months old, we're like, okay, it's time to keep traveling. Let's go. So we move from Montana to Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And the plan is to live there. We're going to work remotely. And Playa del Carmen was a little bit different than what we thought that it was going to be. So it was it just wasn't really flowing for us. And around this time, this is about a month into living there, I'm 4 months postpartum. So what I'm feeling could be thyroid symptoms, or it could just be postpartum, right? Lethargic, extra weight gain, hair falling out. There were all these things, but I just wasn't feeling well. So I went to go get a therapeutic massage, and it was she was I don't know what her certification was, but it was beyond just a regular massage. She was going to do some energy work on me and just get a feel for my body. And she does the 90-minute massage, and when I'm leaving, she goes, just so you know, you have a lump on your neck that you might want to get checked out. And I was like, oh, well, I had a baby 4 months ago. I'm sure it's just hormonal. I'm not worried about it at all. Well, a few weeks later, I'm still not feeling well. And now I'm paying attention to this lump on my neck. I hadn't seen it before. And I'm I feel like it's getting bigger. So I go to the doctor in Playa del Carmen. I actually go to the hospital, and no one speaks English. And I speak pretty rudimentary Spanish, but not enough that I could speak medical terms. And so they do the ultrasound, and they're moving me into a room with a doctor. And he seems pretty not upset, but like he's trying to tell me something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not worried about it. I have zero concerns, zero concerns. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not worried about it. I'll figure it out at a later date. So I leave. Well, a few months later, it's still not flowing for us in Playa del Carmen. I'm still not feeling well. Um, and we decide to move back to Austin. We're like, let's just go back to Austin to ground, to figure out my health, be around our friends, and then we'll figure out what's next. So I get back to Austin and I kind of go through that same process. I go get an ultrasound. Well, this time I'm in the US and I can speak English to my friend who's actually a nurse practitioner. And it's like everything is, I don't know if I'm sure people listening have had ultrasounds, and it kind of is in red where it says like it could be all of these types of things. And they can't say with certainty, but it was like 5 different types of cancer, or it was lit up. So my friend says, okay, there's something going on here. You should go see a thyroid surgeon, because with thyroid cancer, you don't go to an oncologist, or with, potential thyroid cancer, you go to a thyroid specialist, not an oncologist. So I get to the office with the thyroid specialist, and she's asking about my symptoms and I'm explaining them. And she's like, well, it doesn't sound like thyroid cancer. It could be da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, see, I knew it. And I lay on the table and she's like, well, let me do an ultrasound. And because she has different specialized technology and a more specialized eye. So she does the ultrasound. I mean, she's pretty much like 20 seconds into it. And she's like, oh no, this is looking like very classic thyroid cancer that's metastasized to your lymph nodes. And my husband's in the room with me and we're like, is there a potential that it could be anything else? And she's like, we're not going to know for sure unless we do a biopsy. So I'm still holding on to the chance that it's not. Like, I feel a little bit worried, but I'm like, I'm very optimistic here.
Yeah. They're going to find out it's not when they do the biopsy.
So I let her do the biopsy, which was zero fun for people who have had biopsies before. And she says, we'll call you. So it's November 9th, 2019. Cold and rainy day in Austin. Cruz is now 8 months old. He's having breakfast beside me. What many of us in this healing space know is that if you're the first call of the doctor on that day, it's not usually a great thing. They want to get those calls over with. So it's 9 a.m. on the dot. My phone rings and the voice on the other line says, Carly, I'm so sorry, but it's cancer. And that was really the moment that it hit me. That was when, I felt like time stood still, and that feeling of fear of like, I didn't know what that meant. And there was definitely, will I be here to watch my son grow up? What does this look like? Am I like, is this a death sentence? Is that feeling of fear, like I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I can only describe it as, the grace of God, or even that feeling of a parent who's so protective of their child. And I just felt like she said that I had this immense fear. Will I be here? And a minute later I said, oh no, this will not be my story. The only story I will be telling here is a story of victory and a story of healing. And that's started from moments into the diagnosis. I never once said, I have cancer. I never spoke those words over myself. If you go back in any of my Instagram highlights, I said, I am healing. I am on a healing journey. I am restoring my cells. I am bringing myself closer to vitality. I am cleansing my body of any cells that do not serve my highest good. I was very, very clear that I was not going to play in the world of cancer, death, and disease. I was only going to play in a world of health, vitality, and longevity. And that's what I prayed over. That's the foods I chose. Those were the thoughts I chose. And that was how I instructed everyone in my environment to speak to me. My mom has been very into holistic health for years. So, we were drinking regardless of people, vegan, whatever, but we were drinking raw milk in 1980s, like the milkman dropping it at my door. And I used to be like, Mom, why can't we just have the milk like everyone else? And she's like, well, because it has hormones and, things we don't want in our bodies. I was like, I don't care. I want the hormone filled milk like everyone else. Right.
Yes.
So
when you're a kid, that's all that matters.
I always talk to parents and I'm like, don't worry, they're listening. I'm a testament to it. So when I wanted to heal holistically, my mom flew down that day. She flew from New York down to Texas, and she was my biggest champion. She never once, obviously the recommendation was immediate surgery, radiation therapy, hormone replacement the rest of my life. I didn't even take as so much as Tylenol. So thinking about removing an integral part of my endocrine system and being on a hormone replacement, it was nothing I was interested in doing, especially because my largest fear at the time was that if I lost part of my thyroid, I would be losing that zest, that fire, that personality that I have. And I remember a friend said to me at one point, Carly, your personality, your light doesn't live in your thyroid. It lives in your spirit. And
what a good friend.
Yeah. And that really helped me reframe. But my mom came down. She was in full support. But my reason for going on this, telling this part, is that like my brother, for example, was so scared. You have to do the surgery, do what the doctor said. And I said, I love you, but I cannot speak to you right now. That's just not welcome here. This is my healing journey. This is my path. And I know you love me, but because he was really pressuring me, and I just had to put up really strong boundaries and move forward in this healing in a way. I was playing this is a big game. When you're talking about healing cancer, chronic illness, you're playing a big game. These aren't little decisions. These are big life decisions where your life is on the line. And I was very clear how big of these decisions. And I couldn't have the ability to be swayed by someone trying to guilt or fear me into something. And I said, I don't really know which way I'm going to go right now, whether I'm going to do surgery or whether I'm not. I'm not in decision-making process. I'm just allowing myself to feel and process this right now and to get so aligned in my internal experience that then from that clarity, I'm crystal clear on how I want to move forward. So those were just some of the things that's kind of the story as to how I was diagnosed and what it was like for me right in the beginning days when it happened.
Yeah. What a hard thing to do. I think as I've grown up, implementing strong, healthy boundaries with people who love you, like your brother loved you and wanted what was best for you, which is why he's pressuring you to go a different direction. But to know, what I really admire about what you shared there is to know it's like you just had this deep thing in you and it was so strong and you were standing for yourself. And that is not easy to do. Anybody who's been put in that position knows how tricky it is to say no, especially to somebody who loves you, but no. So I just commend you for that. And I love that you said, I like want to write this down. You're playing a big game, because whenever you're healing your body, whether it's an autoimmune disorder, whether it's cancer, whether it's an abnormal cell growth disease, it really changes everything about your life. It is not something that just touches one area. It is a big game, and you have to be all in. And that's what I hear you saying is you were instantly all in, and you were speaking a life over yourself, and you can just feel the power on the words when you were sharing that. So what did it look like next? What was the next step that happened after the diagnosis?
So the doctor, when she had called, wanted to get me into immediate surgery. Are you free next Wednesday? I'm like, no, I'm not free next Wednesday. So she wanted to get me into immediate surgery. And one thing, I'll get to this in a little bit, but I did end up going to Hope for Cancer down in Mexico, and Dr. Tony and his wife, Marcy, are dear friends of mine. And one thing that Dr. Tony always says is cancer is rarely a medical emergency. Cancer is rarely a situation where we need to do something now. For most of us, this has been growing in our bodies for 3, 5, 7, 10 years. For me, probably. I have a couple weeks. Right? It's not like I need to get into surgery tomorrow. Now, he said this after the fact, but in that moment, I still needed The reason I knew to pause was because I had been a health coach. Up until that point, I was a health coach, yoga teacher, shopped at the farmer's market. Like, it wasn't like I was smoking cigarettes and eating McDonald's. Like, I was living a healthy lifestyle, and I knew well enough that the cancer statistics are that over 50% of people who are diagnosed with cancer have a reoccurrence. So I'm sitting there thinking, I've got an 8-month-old baby next to me. I'm 33 years old. 50% odds is not what I'm here for. I'm not in the market for 50% odds. I need healed. I need cellular healing. And so if the standard medical procedures of chemo, radiation, and surgery produce those types of results, I needed enough time to explore alternatives. I knew about the Gerson therapy just from being passionate about health. That was kind of the one thing I knew. So when the doctor called me, I don't think I gave her an answer. I think I said, I'll call you back. But I called her back the next day and said, my husband and I don't have health insurance. Our health, which is true, we didn't have health insurance. It's going to kick in the new year. So I'm like, hey, we should probably go get some health insurance. It's going to kick in the new year. So this is November 9th, and it's going to start January 1st. Is there any reason I can't wait until January to move forward with this surgery? And she said, no, that's fine. You can wait until January.
Really good.
Right. Because now she's not fighting me. Right. I got her on my team. And then I was like, I just bought myself 8 weeks to hit this. And that moment was when it was on. And I sat down, I had a notebook and pen. My mom and husband and I are sitting in my living room, and I'm like, guys, we've got 8 weeks. Let's go. And we started like researching everything. I found out about raw foods and juicing, red light therapy, ozone therapy, hyperbaric oxygen. I mean, I was just Googling. The other thing that I did was that day that I got the diagnosis, I got on my Instagram page. At that point, I probably had about, 9,000 people in my Instagram community who had really just come through me sharing about everyday health. I got on my Instagram page on my stories and said, I just had a really scary thing happen. I was just diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I don't share this for any other reason than this is 9,000 people where maybe we can collectively come up with ideas. Like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm reading books, I'm Googling, but here's 9,000 people who are interested in health. Like, what do you got? Give me everything. So I outsource to be like, because I find what happens with a lot of cancer patients is that they don't tell anyone, and they feel like they don't want to burden people, or how are people going to react? And I always say the greatest gift that you can give people is allowing them to support you in your healing. Why do we donate to random GoFundMe on the internet? Because as humans, we want to support other humans. And so there's no need for us to suffer in silence. Like, let your people love you. Let your community support you through these tough times. And so immediately I'd opened this portal where now we're all brainstorming. Okay, there's this clinic here. There's this clinic here. You could do this. And essentially I was taking it all in and saying, this is all interesting. Now I take it in. Then my mom and my husband and I would sit on the couch and say, okay, what do we want to do? Let's look at finances. Let's look at time. And we put my own little plan together. That was, so 2 days later, I'm driving around Austin. I'm going to therapy. I'm going to see a priest. I'm going to red light therapy. I'm going to saunas. Like, I just started kind of like formulating this plan. And I did that for about 3 weeks, and I was starting to feel good. I was starting to feel better. There's this Instagram story of me in the beginning where I'm drinking celery juice, and I'm like, one day I'm going to like this celery juice instead of coffee, right? Because I like wanted my morning coffee. And I did that for about 3 weeks until I was getting tired of driving all over the place. And so it was at that point that my mom's friend had gone to a clinic in Florida. And these holistic cancer clinics are essentially places that do everything I was driving around town doing, but they do it all under one roof. And so I don't like to share the name of that clinic because I actually no longer recommend it. I had several different issues with them, with the doctor himself. When I got back after 7 weeks of staying there, I asked them to look at a scan of mine. They said, you're no longer a patient. If you want us to look at it, you have to come back at $7,000 a week. So this is why I call Hope for Cancer my healing home, because they truly are the people who have stood by me for years now. But the first place that I did go was in Florida. And it was at that clinic. The one thing this doctor did do really well, which they do at all different holistic cancer clinics, was send you to a biological dentist. And so my second day at the clinic, they said there's a big correlation between head and neck cancers and dental infections. So we want to send you to a biological dentist. And I went and I did a 3D cone beam scan. That's what a biological dentist will give you. Your listeners can find a dentist at iaomt.org. And he did a 3D cone beam scan and my mouth was black with infection. He actually told me that you're lucky it was cancer and that the bones of your face didn't disintegrate with how bad the infection was. I had fallen in college, my freshman year of college, and knocked out my 2 front teeth and broke the upper bone in my mouth. So I had actually done 7 years of reconstructive surgery on my mouth, only to find that all over those years, there was an infection breeding that I didn't feel, I couldn't see. People asked me, like, did you have bad breath? Did you have bleeding gums? And I'm like, no, I didn't have any of that, which is why I'm such a proponent of people going to a biological dentist to get a scan. So the majority of the work that I really did do in Florida was having 3 different surgeries to clean out root canal teeth, remove titanium implants, and cavitation surgery where there was infection growing, where all 4 of my wisdom teeth had been removed. And so that was a really difficult chapter. There was weeks where my mouth was sewn shut. I couldn't talk, and I'm a very lively person. So I went through a really deep spiritual transformation during that time, just being silent and being in bed, and spent a lot of time journaling and talking to God. And so that is a very big part of my story is the dental piece of it.
Wow. And it sounds like, I mean, how painful just having a little bit of dental work done can be a lot. And then I love that you touched on the spiritual aspect, the spiritual and emotional side during that time. What did that look like for you during your journey, your spiritual and emotional health?
Mm-hmm. So when you look at healing any illness from an integrative perspective, we understand that we're not just meat suits walking around. We have a spirit and we have a soul. And so I believe that cancer specifically, we all have cancer cells in our bodies, and some of us turn them on and some of us don't. And cancer is often a perfect storm where you have enough injuries that come physical, I don't mean injuries physically, but you have enough assaults on the body that the cancer cells have a breeding ground. They have an internal terrain where they can proliferate and they can grow. And so when I was looking at healing, I truly left no stone unturned, which is why I said I went to a priest and I went to a therapist. I went to people who did past life regression work. I went to my mom and I said, what was happening when I was a little girl? What was it like when you were pregnant with me? What was it like when your mom was pregnant with you? I was looking under every single rock to understand where I already was doing the physical, right? I was doing the detox. I was doing the dental cleaning. I was doing the juicing and the raw foods. Like physically, I was locked in. But emotionally, I didn't have this big capital T trauma that I'm like, oh, it was that. So I had to get curious about where things could have happened. Now, looking back, my dad passed of a abdominal aneurysm May of 2018 in a shocking death. I mean, he's fine. He's having lunch at my mom's kitchen table. He has a stomach ache. My mom runs to the store to get him activated charcoal. She's home 10 minutes later and he's passed. So that's the type of the phone call you get. My mom's crying at the hospital. Dad just died. And I just remember falling to the floor like, what? Like, can't comprehend. So that would be considered an injury, right? Anything that shocks your system. So that was 2018. 2 months later, I find out that I'm pregnant with Cruz. Now, I say this in a really sensitive way because I know that there are mothers who work really hard and go to great lengths to have children. But at that point in my story, I didn't want children. That wasn't part of my journey. My husband and I wanted to travel the world freely. We were on our way to move to South Korea. We didn't dream about having kids. We didn't talk about having kids. We loved it being him and I was shocked. Well, I took 8 pregnancy tests. So again, now we have another shock. And when I found that pregnancy test, I cried, and it wasn't happy tears. It was WTF. What are we going to do here? And obviously now I'm a mama to 2. It's my favorite job. My children are freaking amazing, right? But that was a process for me. And so, oh, and then you begin to see that I had this dental infection that's growing over 10 years. So physically we have the dental infection. Mentally and emotionally, I'm having these shocks that are hitting my system. And so, prayer, meditation, journaling, these all became just as important to my healing journey as drinking my juice and doing my coffee enemas, because we are holistic beings and we're not just a body. We are a body, mind, and spirit. I developed a very close relationship with God during this time. I was raised Catholic and I got confirmed when I was, I think, in like 7th grade. And then after that, my mom said, you can do what you want. My grandparents wanted the grandchildren to get confirmed in the Catholic Church. And then after we were confirmed, okay, now it's whatever you want to do. And my spirituality was yoga. Yoga, I traveled to India, and, love was my religion. I still don't consider myself a religious person, but I am a woman who's filled with faith. I have a deep relationship with Jesus. I talk to God all day, every day. I pray every day. I love learning about the Bible. I think I take a pretty open-minded approach to all things, but my faith is a key pillar in who I am. And that literally came from those quiet days where my mouth was sewn shut and I would just lay in bed and talk to God. And I felt that I was so silent and I was so still. And I was probably so desperate and open that I could actually hear a response. So I've heard it say that prayer is the ask and meditation is the listening. Prayer is speaking to God, meditation is listening. And so that was one thing that was really beautiful about Hope for Cancer, is that it is a faith organization and people go who aren't Christian. But every morning we worship and we sing, and there's a woman there who does something called recall healing, where you're really looking at your past. And it really, really is an integral part of the healing process to look at those emotional wounds that we carry.
Wow, that's really beautiful. For those who've been following me for a while know that I have stage 4 endometriosis, and I've done all the medical things, have not been able to heal doing the conventional therapies. So, on came this hard right towards natural healing. And as I've been going on this journey, I think I would hear a lot about emotional health and spiritual health in the beginning, but I was never able to just tap into it. It was like I couldn't find it. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm happy. Things are good. And I just couldn't. I knew that there was stuff, but I couldn't access it. So emotional and spiritual healing are really interesting because they kind of unfold when the timing is right. And all of a sudden, over the last 2 years, it was like my eyes were opened to this aspect of my healing journey. And now I've really come to this place where I'm like, man, I don't know how much of it, at least for me on my journey, I think for a lot of people on their healing journeys with those traumas that you talked about, have to tap into those places, because we are body, soul, spirit. We are emotions. We are energy that is vibrating. We need to connect to those places and bring healing to those wounds and that inner child and those things that have happened in our lives. And I actually am working with a counselor who's amazing. He went to Hope for Cancer and he got into the recall work, and man, it has been life transforming working with him. I have absolutely loved it.
Wow, it's
So
amazing to hear.
yeah, it's been so cool. So for those of you who are listening, who you're like, yeah, I'm sure emotions and spiritual stuff have, if you haven't had that aha moment, it will come. Just sit with your heart, sit with God, and I just really believe that it happens when it's supposed to happen. Like you can't force it, but also it's I want to say almost even like 100% of the journey is that emotional healing piece. It's so very important.
And a couple good books. You have Louise
Yeah.
Hay, You Can Heal Your Life,
Mm.
The Biology of Belief. Um, Radical Remission is a great book that kind of notes
Yes.
a little bit on this. Yeah, those are some good ones that pop
Yeah.
right into my mind.
Awesome. I love that. What did it look like before your diet? What did it look like before your diagnosis and then after going to Hope for Cancer? What was that like for you?
So before the diagnosis, I was following more of a paleo type diet. So animal proteins, fruits, vegetables. I would do some kind of like quinoa, stuff like that. But it wasn't perfect. Like we'd still go get pizza sometimes, drink beer sometimes. But it was probably like, it was more like an 80-20 lifestyle, I would say. It was predominantly a clean organic diet, whole foods based clean organic diet with 20% fun. And then when I was diagnosed, I immediately went raw. And the pillar of my diet was 64 ounces of raw organic cold pressed juice every day. So my mom and I would spend an hour juicing every morning. And that's a half gallon of juice that I'm drinking a day. So that's pretty substantial. And then I was just having a midday raw salad and an evening raw salad. And I followed that diet for about a year, completely raw, vegan, juicing and salads for a year, until I started working with a different practitioner where I was kind of switching into a little bit more of a maintenance phase. And then I slowly added in a bit more high quality fats and fish. So I would add in wild caught salmon to that. And today my diet is, caveat to that is that, which is where I'm going to go in a minute. When we were juicing every morning, my mom and I, there were a couple days we couldn't get to juicing. And we looked around Austin. We were looking for raw organic cold pressed juice in glass bottles, and it didn't exist in this very health conscious city. And at the time, I needed to bring in extra income to fund my healing journey. So we're like, okay, how do we provide value and bring money? And I essentially just went on my Instagram page and said, hey, would anyone be interested in us juicing for you? And it was so basic. I'd say, like, here's the 2 recipes. They'd send me an Instagram message. I'd send them a PayPal invoice. I think we had like 25 bottles to make on our first order. And my mom and Ross, my husband, Mom Ross and I would juice all day. And then we'd go deliver it. Ross and I would go deliver at 5 a.m. And we didn't intend to really make a business out of it. We just wanted to bring in some extra income. But within a few weeks, the demand was so high that we had to move to a commercial kitchen. And I remember
Wow.
sitting down being like, so are we going to do this? Are we going to make a juice business?
Right.
And we're like, why the hell not? Like, we can, once you navigate cancer, you can do anything. Okay. So we fail. Let's try it. And yeah, we've scaled that to a 7-figure business over the last 3 years, and
Wow.
we have 2 locations, and we're growing rapidly. We have an amazing team, and that's what brought me to today. Is I still eat a lot of salads. Salads are like my favorite food. I drink a lot of Alchemy Juice, which is the name of our company. So I don't drink 64 ounces, but I'll have 1 to 2 16-ounce bottles a day. So between 16 ounces to 32 ounces of juice a day. Water is a key foundation of my nutrition. I drink molecular hydrogen water out of a water ionizer. I actually have an online Eat Week detox course, and the foundation of that course is hydration, because I don't feel like I can speak to people about nutrition or lymphatic drainage or coffee enemas if I don't know that they're drinking enough water and the right type of water. And then, yeah, I really just steer clear of boxed packaged products. So it's like if it came from the earth, and I do eat animal protein. So I usually have animal protein a few times a week. Wild caught, pasture raised, grass fed, comes from the farmer's market. I don't think it's fair for us to say this blanket meat is bad, because they're literally different chemical products from what comes from a farmer's market and what's sold on the shelves at grocery stores. And I also really am a fan of bioindividuality. There was a time of my life where raw vegan worked There's a time in my life where eating animal protein works. So we can't make these blanket statements about diets. It's like, what's your biology? Where do you live? What do you need? Is your goal healing? Is your goal fitness? Is it to build muscle? Is it to, right? Like, so the
Yes.
diet thing is so confusing for so
So
many people.
good. Thank you. I'm so glad you said that. I think one of the pillars of this podcast is this is about healing. It is not about diet. Raw
Yeah.
vegan works, plant-based works, animal products, and bio individually, it's so huge. It's
Yeah.
absolutely huge. So I love that you said that, because it's what heals. It's not the dogma or doctrine of diet, which a
There are
lot of
people
people
who
can get caught
heal.
up in.
Yeah. And there are people who heal on a keto diet.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like with
Yeah,
certain brain
absolutely.
cancers, they
Mhm,
do keto and it works.
mhm.
So how can we say that's wrong, that's right? Because raw vegan works for some people and keto works for some people.
Yeah. And I think the science backed element of diet is really important. I think people get a little muddled in that because there'll be these doctors who just cite studies and they'll create a whole basis of like, this diet over here is the way to go. But there really is actually quite a bit of really good science with meta-analysis of different types of eating for different types of diseases. So and even different types of cancer, even if you narrow it down just to the cancer world, like you said, maybe brain cancer, keto is a really good way to go. And, different people heal different ways. And I just think that's so beautiful. I think it's beautiful to have the diversity of stories. And that's why I love doing this, because we need to hear people's healing stories, because there might be something that is meant to be, that somebody is listening right now to your story and it's meant to be for them, for their healing journey. But somebody else will come on, they'll have a different way that they've gone about healing, and that was meant to be for someone else. And so there's just these nuggets and these keys. And I love that you brought in your community. That is really scary and hard to do because it's really vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I commend you for that. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if there is someone who's listening who's just starting into their healing journey, whatever it is that they are facing, what is one of the first things that you would say, or first resources that you would say would be a good direction to head towards?
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, like breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, settle. Because we get a diagnosis and people start spinning out. I noticed myself doing it myself. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What kind of story do you want to tell right now? Because like I said, you're playing a big game. And so the first thing I would say is take a deep breath and arrive into your body and your heart. You are in charge of the healing journey, not your spouse, not your parents, not a doctor, not your children, you. These are our lives we're talking about. Now, part of my story, which is relevant here, is that I healed for 3 years with integrative methods. Juicing, no interventions, no conventional interventions, juicing, diet, detox, mindset. I had an 80% reduction in the amount of cancer in my body. My doctors at Hope for Cancer said, great, we can just monitor you. You're good. You just come back once every 6 months, once every 12 months, keep doing what you're doing, check mark. I wanted to have another baby. I wanted to birth and grow another baby. My mom wanted me to have a surrogate. I said, regardless of what the outcome may be, I want a baby. My husband and I had those conversations. During my pregnancy, there was some progression of the cancer. So when Cash, my second son, was 3 months old, I committed to breastfeeding for 3 months, and then I got milk donors all the way to 12 months. I wanted to breastfeed him for 3 months. And then at that mark, I went and got a surgery. I went and had surgery. And I called my surgeon and I said, hey, I'm ready. Can you put me on the books? People might say, well, Carly, you ended up in the same place having surgery. But who did I become? What did I learn? How did I heal my body so that when I got to that place 3 years later, I did it in my way on my own terms? So it's not about yes, chemo, no chemo, yes, surgery, raw food, juicing. It's all about you choosing it in a way that feels right for you. Because if you believe that you're going to heal in a certain way, that is what's going to be healing for you because you believe it. And so that would be my words for people. Take a breath, pause, and use this as an opportunity to go so deep in yourself and to find that reserve of clarity so that you can move forward from an inner directed place as opposed to the noise outside, because there will be noise because everyone has an opinion. I had people on the internet when I was sharing my story and I was teaching about how I was juicing and doing raw foods, who told me I was killing people. I was like, I'm sorry. And now 98% of people were very supportive and kind. But then I had that person every now and then, they're like, how dare you share this information? You're killing people. I'm like, pause. Pause. Me teaching about how to juice and eat raw foods. Like, how backwards is this, right? So like the point is that there will be noise from family, from the internet. I can promise you that. And that's why pause, take a deep breath, and whatever you need to do, prayer, meditation, nature walks, find that inner directed place from deep within your own heart and own spirit.
That's really, really good. I love that. One last question for you before we close. I'm curious if you know through your journey, because I've come across this a few times with people on their cancer journeys, is in the natural health world, you hear a lot of people say, don't get a biopsy because it can cause metastases. Do you know if there is other options for people aside from biopsy to check if they have cancer or not, now that you've been through Hope for Cancer, which I think is a very respected cancer clinic?
So the tool that I personally use is the Prenuvo scan. So Prenuvo is a radiation-free MRI that I go do. It's a head-to-toe scan once a year. It does early detection for over 500 different disease processes. And including early detection cancer way before an ultrasound could see it. So I do that. However, the biopsy conversation, you're right, and I get asked this all the time. My answer to that is, when I needed the biopsy to actually understand exactly what I was working with, because I don't know that I would have gone as hard if I didn't have to actually understand what kind of cancer, what stage, I needed the details to get myself in action. So like, is the result of the information that you get in the biopsy going to support you to do what you need to do? If you're like, oh, regardless, I'm just going to get surgery, then you don't really need the biopsy. Do you know what I'm saying? So I also believe that I know at Hope for Cancer, they do a colored Doppler ultrasound. And my understanding is that if someone went to Hope for Cancer really on in their journey, I have a feeling that Dr. Tony would use the colored Doppler ultrasound in place of a biopsy. I can't say for sure. That could be a question that people could just call the clinic directly and ask about. But I feel like he'd find a different alternative to biopsy. But at the time, with where I was, I personally needed the information. But ongoing, I use a yearly Prenuvo scan.
Awesome. That's a really great resource.
Yeah.
All right. So is there any last things you want to leave with the listeners? And then also, if people are curious where to find you, where can they find you?
So what I want to leave you with is that you're amazing. We're all here for a reason. There's like a 1 in many billion chance that you are here in this sacred moment in time. Like you have a purpose, you have a voice, and we need you to share it. We need people who are lit up, who are using their voice to contribute to this planet, whether that's sharing your healing journey, whether that's being kind to someone, whether that's quitting a soul-sucking job and making your own business. Like, we need you. We need you, and we need you in your heart, and we need you doing what feels real and true and authentic for you. So I don't know if that has anything to do with cancer, but that's what I want to say.
So good. That's so good. I love that. And where can we find you?
You can find me. My Instagram is at Carly Loves Kale. My website is carlybrownwellness.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so great having you on. And thanks so much to those who are listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more healing stories and expert interviews, please be sure to follow along and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.